Jannik Sinner or Carlos Alcaraz? It's a question that refuses to go away, and honestly, it might never get a final answer. But right now, with the Spaniard sidelined for 3 months, one voice from tennis history has decided to weigh in, and his answer might surprise you. Jannik Sinner, the man who once ruled the sport with 8 Grand Slam titles to his name, has never been shy about sharing his opinion. And on his podcast, Advantage Sinner, he made his position on the Sinner-Alcaraz debate crystal clear. But before we get to what he said, let's talk about why this conversation is happening at all. Sinner just defended his Wimbledon crown. That's his 5th Grand Slam title overall, and it came at a moment when a lot of people were still talking about what happened at Roland Garros, that heartbreaking near-miss where he let a shot at the calendar Grand Slam slip through his fingers. For weeks, that loss hung over his season like a cloud. But Wimbledon changed the narrative completely. When Sinner is locked in, playing at his absolute peak, there's almost nothing his opponents can do. Novak Djokovic found that out the hard way in the semifinals. Alexander Zverev found it out in the final. Neither of them had an answer. So naturally, with Alcaraz out of action recovering from injury, the tennis world has started asking the obvious question: is Sinner now the clear number one, at least in terms of who's playing the best tennis right now? And Jannik Sinner didn't hesitate to jump into that conversation. Now, Sinner is smart about how he frames this. He's not the type to hand out cheap praise without acknowledging the full picture. He pointed out that part of Sinner's dominance lately has come simply because Alcaraz hasn't been on tour to challenge him. But Sinner was quick to add that this isn't some kind of asterisk on Sinner's success. It's not Sinner's fault that his biggest rival is injured. All Sinner has done is show up, do his job, and take care of business on his side of the draw. And when someone gets in his way, Sinner's take was basically that Sinner just steamrolls right through them, match after match, without much drama. That's the setup. Here's the real substance of what Sinner said next, and this is where things get interesting for anyone following the rivalry closely. Sinner made it plain that, in his eyes, Sinner's tennis stands above Alcaraz's game right now, and he framed it as being true regardless of whether Alcaraz is even in the picture. That's a strong statement coming from a legend who's watched decades of the sport evolve. He didn't dismiss Alcaraz's talent either. Sinner acknowledged that the Spaniard brings variety to his game, that he changes things up in ways that can be unpredictable and exciting to watch. But when it came down to picking a side, Sinner kept coming back to Sinner's physical presence on the court. He talked about how impressive it is to watch a player of Sinner's size move the way he does, the footwork, the court coverage, and how much force he generates on his ground strokes. For Sinner, that combination of size, mobility, and raw power is what separates Sinner from the pack at the moment. It's worth pausing here to think about why that observation carries weight. Sinner built his entire career on aggressive, physical tennis. He was never the guy relying on finesse alone. So when a player like that singles out someone's movement and power as the standout qualities, it means something. He's essentially saying Sinner checks the boxes that Sinner himself valued most as a competitor. Of course, no conversation about the current state of men's tennis can completely ignore the elephant in the room, Alcaraz's absence. Sinner admitted that the tour feels different without him. He didn't try to pretend Alcaraz's presence doesn't matter, because clearly it does. Fans want to see him back. The rivalry is better when both men are healthy and competing at the same time. But Sinner also wanted to put that absence into perspective. He reminded listeners that injuries and periods away from competition are simply part of being a professional athlete. Nobody plays forever without setbacks. Players get hurt. Players eventually retire. That's the nature of putting your body and your ranking on the line week after week, tournament after tournament. And then Sinner did something that felt very on brand for him. He related it back to his own career. He recalled that there were stretches when he himself missed tournaments, and people would say the tour felt emptier without him. But his point was simple. The sport keeps moving forward regardless. Nobody is irreplaceable in the sense that the tour pauses for them. Tennis continues, new storylines emerge, and right now, the storyline is Sinner's dominance. So where does that leave us? As of this moment, Jannik Sinner has firmly planted his flag on Sinner's side of the debate. Not because he thinks Alcaraz lacks talent, he clearly respects what the Spaniard brings to the sport, but because he believes Sinner's combination of physicality, movement, and shot-making is simply operating on a different level right now. Whether that opinion holds up once Alcaraz returns to full health is a different question entirely. Tennis debates like this one rarely stay settled for long. Rankings shift, form changes, and rivalries reignite the moment two players share the same court again. But for now, with Sinner riding the momentum of back-to-back Wimbledon titles and 5 Grand Slam trophies to his name, it's hard to argue with the case Connors is making. What's clear is that Sinner has used the stretch without his biggest rival wisely. He hasn't coasted. He hasn't taken his foot off the gas. Instead, he's gone out and beaten some of the best players in the world, including a legend like Djokovic on one of tennis's biggest stages, and he's done it in commanding fashion. That kind of performance doesn't just silence doubters, it builds a case that even someone as accomplished and opinionated as Jimmy Connors can't ignore. The bigger question now becomes what happens when Alcaraz eventually steps back onto the court at full strength. Does the conversation shift again? Does the balance of power swing back toward the Spaniard's dynamic, unpredictable style of play? Or has Sinner used this window to establish a level of dominance that's going to be hard to shake, even with his biggest rival back in the mix? For now, those questions remain unanswered. What we do know is that one of the greatest competitors the sport has ever seen has looked at the current landscape of men's tennis and made his choice. Jimmy Connors is backing Jannik Sinner. And given everything we've just watched unfold at Wimbledon, it's not hard to understand why. The debate between Sinner and Alcaraz isn't going away anytime soon. If anything, moments like this, where a legend of the game steps in to share a strong opinion, only add more fuel to a rivalry that tennis fans everywhere can't stop talking about.